After missing President Biden's deadline for a counteroffer on infrastructure, Republicans are on the verge of bringing one to the table. The price tag is expected to be close to $1 trillion, less than half of what the White House initially proposed. Senate Republicans say the president told them that's a number he could support. The next big debate is likely to be how to pay for it. Meanwhile, President Biden is ordering U.S. intelligence agencies to redouble their efforts to investigate the origins of COVID-19. He has given them 90 days to report back. Deputy White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said this about the U.S. approach to China.
We will continue to pushing for a stronger multilateral investigation into the origins of the virus in China. And we will continue to press China to participate in a full, transparent, evidence-based international investigation with the needed access to get to the bottom of a virus that's taken more than 3 million lives across the globe.
It comes a day after a newly disclosed U.S. intelligence report revealed lab workers in Wuhan, China, sought medical attention for COVID-like symptoms a month before the first official case was confirmed by Beijing. And another mass shooting in America. A gunman killed at least 8 people Wednesday morning at a light rail facility in San Jose, California. The suspect is dead. Authorities say he was an employee at the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. A bomb squad was also deployed to the scene to look for possible explosives. It comes as the next potential head of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms is testifying on Capitol Hill. More on that in a moment. Here's how Vice President Harris, who is from the Bay Area, responded this afternoon.
The shooting in San Jose the facts are still revealing themselves, but it is absolutely tragic. It's absolutely tragic. I have family that live in San Jose. I've worked for many, many years with the mayor of San Jose and that police department. And my prayers and my thoughts are with all of those families that have been affected.
On Capitol Hill, the prospects of a bipartisan commission to examine the Capitol insurrection are dimming in the Senate. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has said he will bring the issue to a vote sometime this week. Republican leadership is planning to filibuster, and so far, it does not appear there are 10 Republican votes to overcome that filibuster. For more on this, let's bring in Nikole Killion, Zeke Miller, and Natalie Jennings. Nikole is a CBS News congressional correspondent. Zeke is a CBSN political contributor and White House reporter for the Associated Press. And Natalie is deputy Washington editor for the Washington Post. Welcome to you all. Zeke, let me start with you. So the White House said this redoubling of efforts to investigate the origins of COVID-19 is just a continuation of the probe which began a month ago. What's the significance of the timing of this announcement, and what exactly does redoubling their efforts mean?
Well, have you asked White House aides about this theory about the COVID-19 coming out of a Chinese lab anytime over the past several months, you would have gotten a fairly dismissive response. They never put much credence in it. In fact, they aren't really putting that much in it now. Talking to White House officials here today, this is less about sort of the destination, truly determining with absolute certainty the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's part of it. There is a benefit to that to the scientific community to learn how to beat future ones. It's more about the journey to get there and China's effort by the Biden administration to really turn the screws on China for not opening up its facilities and its investigators there and its personnel to an independent investigation, both multilaterally through the World Health Organization and answering questions that the United States has as well specifically. So there's the geopolitical effort here on the part of the Biden administration to really sort of highlight, sort of use this to do in the Biden administration, telling this is sort of emblematic of China's approach to all sorts of global institutions and not sort of playing by the rules of the road that others follow. This is an effort by them to really to sort of elevate that and put that on the pedestal for the world to see. There's also obviously the domestic political considerations to consider here, as the White House has faced increasing pressure from Republicans for not being, quote, tough enough on China in calling out China in the way that a lot of Republicans thought the Trump administration was. So this solves some of their domestic concerns as well as they try to make this broader global point.
Interesting. Well, Natalie, we know that the Chinese government has been less than transparent in granting access to information about the virus to date. Realistically, what pressure can the administration apply to try to get more answers?
They can wrap it into a lot of things. They can also, put this in the realm of the international interest, not just America's interest. America and China have a somewhat adversarial relationship, and you can see the Chinese having an easy way of saying, no, America specifically cannot come in. I noticed that President Biden, in his statement today, said that, in addition to the Chinese government having not been transparent initially, there wasn't proper pressure put on from the administration at the time. That would be the Trump administration. And that time lost in the initial months is probably going to hamper finding out what is going on here. We know the Health and Human Service Secretary yesterday, in front of an international body, spoke about the need for transparency. And so I think we'll look to see sort of all of the global pressure on that, in addition to what the U.S. is saying to China about learning more about this.
All right, well, let's turn to infrastructure. Nikole, Republican senators are close to their counteroffer. What can we expect?
Well, we expect that Senate Republicans will hold a press conference on Thursday where they will unveil their latest counteroffer, which is estimated to be somewhere in the ballpark of $1 trillion. And Senate Republicans say they believe that this is a figure they feel that the president can accept. Perhaps this would be close to $1 trillion over 8 years. But this comes on the heels of the White House presenting a counteroffer of $1.7 trillion. But in Republicans' view, that's still not good enough for them, simply because, it still includes, in their view, a lot of things that don't fall under that category of traditional infrastructure.
Right. Well, Zeke, we mentioned the confirmation hearing of President Biden's nominee to lead the ATF. David Chipman comes on the same day as another mass shooting. What can you tell us about his private sector work after leaving the agency?
He was publicly a fairly vocal critic of the NRA, of organized gun groups. He worked with the with Gabby Giffords' group to end gun violence. And so from his standpoint, the gun rights groups have sort of really made him sort of public enemy number one. They're like in a lot of ways that they have other nominees for this position before. This isn't new. We've seen this playbook play out. It does come, though, as sort of the politics around gun violence and the organized gun groups have changed as the NRA has come under a whole sort of structural its issues around its bankruptcy filings and the like. It's a lot weaker than it was, but the politics in Washington haven't changed around it, and that's what's striking here. The White House seems to think that they will have the votes to sort of push this through, but it's going to be a very tough fight for them, an uphill battle on this one going forward.
Meantime, Natalie, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas testified before a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee Wednesday. What is the latest on the administration's efforts to tackle the surge of migrants at the border?
Yeah, so the facilities, initially we heard a lot, and we've heard a lot less in recent months. There was this major surge, record-setting surge of children, particularly coming to the border. There's still about 18,000 of those children as of this week in facilities. The facilities are a lot better conditions, we're told, than the initial ones, but advocates say it's still not enough being done. This is something that is going to be a political issue for Biden as much as, he wants to sort of not talk about it. But we are hearing more about these facilities. As you can see with these shots on the scene, these aren't the crowded cages that we saw a couple of years ago by a long shot, but it is still obviously a big problem for the administration that these children are in the care of the U.S. government. We're going to see a budget for Homeland Security within a couple of days, and we can expect this issue to keep bubbling up with appearances on the Hill and that as the summer goes on.
Yeah, it's something that we're continuing to watch here on Red and Blue. Nikole, last week, Minority Whip John Thune said he expected the Senate to pass a bill to create a January 6th commission in some form. How likely is that?
Well, look, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has made clear he is going to move forward with a debate and vote on this commission, perhaps as early as tomorrow. And we are seeing Senate Republicans face increasing pressure, including from the mother of fallen U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. Gladys Sicknick is expected to be on the Hill Thursday. She says she wants to sit down with every Republican senator if she can to try to convince them to support this commission. And in a statement that she put out this afternoon, she said that not having a commission would be a slap in the faces of all of the officers who did their jobs that day. And she also said that lawmakers should visit her son's grave at Arlington National Cemetery and really think about what their decisions would do to these officers. This is obviously a very powerful testimony even before official votes get underway here. Whether or not Senate Republicans will listen to that remains to be seen. Mitch McConnell was asked whether he'd be willing to sit down with her. He did not respond to reporters' questions, but I did have a chance, for instance, to talk to Senator Tim Scott, who said he would be willing to hear what she has to say. And there are certainly some Republicans who have indicated support for this commission, such as Senator Mitt Romney, Senator Lisa Murkowski. You also have Maine Senator Susan Collins, who wants to make some changes to the bill and may put forth some amendments. So there are some Republicans who are supportive of this commission, but others who feel that, simply there are enough investigations that are already underway and they don't see the need for this particular commission at this time. And certainly they do have some concerns about this dragging on into next year, which of course will be a very key election year.
Right, but as you noted, a very powerful voice there and a powerful statement from the mother of Officer Sicknick. Nikole Killion, Zeke Miller, and Natalie Jennings, thank you all very much.